Another week, another whiff of scandal for the Dallas Cowboys. Is Michael Irvin's best defense a good offense against one of the best defenses in the National Football League, the sack-happy Carolina Panthers? Kevin Green and the Panthers were #1 in the NFL this season with 60 sacks. Drew Bledsoe and the New England Patriots also face a stern defense today, the latest version of Pittsburgh's Steel Curtain.
The Sports Reporters with Dick Schaffner, presented by AT&T.
Good morning and welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Reporters. We'll be discussing those subjects and more with Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe, whose New England Patriots are only 2 victories away from the Super Bowl. Mike Lupick of the New York Daily News, whose Green Bay Packers, they've been his team for hours, are only 1 victory away from the Super Bowl. And Bill Conlon of the Philadelphia Daily News, whose Jacksonville Jaguars are only 1 victory away from the Super Bowl. Gentlemen, to the surprise of almost everyone except Mr. Conlon, Jacksonville stunned the Denver Broncos yesterday and moved into the AFC Championship game. Can any of you remember an upset of similar magnitude in NFL playoffs? Bob Ryan?
Well, the upset of upsets, of course, was Super Bowl III, but this thing is #1 since then for me because Jacksonville owes its presence in the playoffs to Morton Anderson missing a 3-foot putt, #1, and Denver's supposed to be the mother of all home field advantages. So I rank this one for me. I can't think of anything bigger.
Michael?
This is the biggest pro football upset since Namath. This happened in the 34th game of the Jacksonville Jaguars' existence. All season long, we've talked about Carolina, and now the Jaguars are 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl. It's an unbelievable accomplishment.
Biggest one since the Jets won a Super Bowl.
Yes.
And the next biggest upset will be when the Jets win a game. Bill?
Those of us who have driven one insist the pronunciation be Jaguar.
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 Oh, pardon
Okay, you got to remember that just a little over a year ago, Jacksonville and the Carolina Panthers played each other at Canton in the Hall of Fame game, and everybody said, look at those donkeys out there, pity them, right? This was a Truman Dewey upset. That's the magnitude that it took on.
Okay, we know how Truman did it. How did Jacksonville do it?
Oh, well, they did it because they dominated. Well, Brunell. Let's start with the obvious. Mark Brunell is the flavor of the month right now. I mean, he's the guy who can make things happen, make something out of nothing. And they dominated the ball. Natrone Means comes from where? I mean, where was he 7 weeks ago? You know, so those 2 factors.
Like Truman Dewey, the
Baselli in the line.
The lefty won.
It was the Ways and Means Committee.
Three things happened yesterday. One, we found out that Brunell's passing yardage during the season were no fluke, and that he's going to be a very special player. 2, Means did this the way he's done it before in the playoffs for the San Diego Chargers. And 3, I thought the Denver defense was exposed yesterday as not being the dominant force that some people had thought. And the 3rd down call at the end, clear, that to me is when coaches separate themselves from the field. They clearly said, you know what, a field goal's not going to do us any good here. We need to score a touchdown. Coughlin said, let's go win the game, and Brunell throws the ball right on the money to Jimmy Smith, and they win the game.
The definition of not playing not to lose. This is the definition, playing to win.
How much do you think it hurt Denver, the fact that they sort of gave away their last 2 games of the season?
Well, you know, I was in Denver early in the week, and one of the biggest topics of conversation was that this is going to be the first, quote-unquote, meaningful game they played in 5 weeks since they beat the Patriots back on November 17th, and that they clinched then, and they were able to cruise from then on. Oh, the Green Bay game didn't mean anything, and the San Diego game at the end of the season didn't mean anything. Well, you wouldn't have said... You would have said fine because the first 2 series, they looked pretty good.
This team was a missed field goal away from going nowhere. A missed 30-yard field goal by one of the greatest field goal kickers of all time, Morton Anderson. Okay? Their approach to their whole existence has been go out and get an established quarterback, the best that we can find. Not that Brunell was established, but he was in the league. Whereas the Carolina Panthers, the other great success story, which plays today, went out and got the best college quarterback they could find. Brunell was that far away from signing with the Philadelphia Eagles.
All during the game, Denver, I thought, made big mistakes, particularly at the end of the half. I thought that Jacksonville going in ahead at halftime really rocked them. All of a sudden, Brunell throws, I think it was Smith, wide open down the right sideline right before the half. They get a field goal. And you could see, just in the posture of the Broncos coming off the field at halftime, that, oh, you know, now we're in some trouble here. And all during the second half, I thought that there was this idea on the part of the Broncos, we'll get them at the end, except their defense never made a big stop down the stretch.
How many times was Bill Romanowski going to run up and buy somebody? I mean, he had one of the worst games of his career, I think. He just terrible. You know, how about Clyde Simmons? Let's talk about the blocking the extra.
Talk about a guy coming back from the dead.
Because, you know, it's easy. We all have the wonderful benefit of this 20/20 hindsight now. But boy, that was a huge play that just stopped the bleeding right then and there. You know, to give them something to focus on.
You could have had Clyde Simmons for a wagon load of pumpkins before the season, and now he winds up scoring a huge defensive touchdown last week and comes up with another monster game yesterday.
Bob is absolutely right, though. 12-0 is not the same as 14-0 down. And, you know, now it's 12-3, and they just feel like they're in the game. And unfortunately, you look at what's happening with Carolina and Jacksonville, and you can see that this is going to continue to encourage all the other sports to expand even more.
Michael, isn't it nice to see this coach come out of a college program and kind of do for this franchise what Jimmy Johnson did for the Dallas Cowboys?
Because, you know, historically, it's not a good track record for big-time college coaches to come into the pros. And
well, he wasn't big-time. He was at Boston College.
Well, you know, it's funny. He's now on his resume, going into South Bend and beating Notre Dame when he was at Boston College. And now he's gone in and done one of the hardest things to do in pro football. Not just beat the Denver Broncos in Denver, but to beat John Elway in the fourth quarter.
But now, isn't every owner going to expect his coach become a winner that
I really think that the trickle-down effect of what Carolina and Jacksonville are doing is getting coaches fired, and general managers are going to be in trouble all over the sports because these owners look at what Coughlin has done and what Bill Polian and Capers have done in Carolina and say, wait a minute, these guys can do it in 2 years. What's this 5-year program that we're working on?
If this is the first hurrah for Brunell, is it the last for Elway?
Well, he didn't want to talk about any possibilities of this being my my last chance and all that.
He had a heck of a shot.
He's coming off, he had a great shot. We thought he's 36. He's coming off the year that he is. I say no. I mean, and you don't know. We're talking about the volatility factor here again. I could see him being a 38-year-old John Elway back in 2 years with a retooled Denver team.
You and your sidekick are rushing from here up to New England. How do you like the home team's chances?
Well, the chances are okay, but I happen to think Pittsburgh's should be favored a little bit for the following reason. The Patriots, the one thing they have not done all year is win a low-scoring game. The fewest points in victory they've had was 23, and most of them have been high-scoring games, and I don't know that they can score that many points against Pittsburgh today.
And I have two operative words here, zone blitz. Unless the Big Tone puts in a lot of three-step drop stuff for Drew Bledsoe, who's not the quickest quarterback in the world, he's going to have trouble hitting those timing patterns that they like to throw, and he's in for a long afternoon.
You know, when we look at other sports sometimes, I think we talk too much about coaches, but up in Foxborough today, that's a really wonderful coaching matchup. I mean, in the past, when Parcells has gotten close like this, he's been like a boxer who's a great finisher, especially in '90 with the Giants. And what Bill Cowher has done with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and God bless Mike Tomczak. I mean, he deserves to have this kind of season in the sun. But if he makes the Super Bowl, he will be one of the weakest starting quarterbacks.
And then the Jets will hire him.
But what Cowher has done with this team, bringing it back, one game away from going to the third AFC Championship game in 3 years is a really wonderful coaching job.
You mentioned his quarterback situation, and it is interesting because Cowher, not noted as life of the party type, you know?
Really?
Yeah. Well, he's really enjoying himself this week. He's almost, dare I say it, impish. He loves this uncertainty that he's thrown into the mix with the Cordell Stewart thing, and I really think you're going to see more of Cordell Stewart today than anybody's seen all year.
Coming up next, the NFC. Troy Aikman will be pitching today, and Michael Irvin will be catching. But after another routine week of ugly accusations and angry denials, can the Cowboys survive the Panthers' spit and win a trip to the tundra?